E aloha kakahiaka, aloha and good morning to you. It's Kuleanaworks back with our little book of sovereignty, our rights to self-determination, a Hawaiian manifesto written by Ann Keala Kelly. You can find this book at kuleanaworks.com along with her movie Noho Heva. And it's been a wee bit since I've done a recording for you, a video for you, and like you, I'm going through a lot. Life is very fast-paced, a lot of traumatic things going on. And on top of it all, we have to prepare for a volcanic eruption possibly. So, there's a lot going on. And I'm just grateful that I'm back with you. The last one was on Mauna Kea Trask's birthday. And that got a lot of views, and you brought me to over 100 subscribers. So if you're watching this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Where's Your Aloha? And go check out all the other videos about this amazing little book, which should be being taught in the immersion schools, in the college. We should all have this book. I carry mine in my purse because sometimes I think of something, then I look it up. It's really a very good tool for us right now because, as you know, the Department of Interior is coming after us again. They want to federally recognize us, even though we've said no ad nauseum. We just were like, no, we're not Native Americans. We are sovereign Hawaiian kingdom, Kanaka Maoli. And this is our country, and you're here illegally, and we don't need your recognition. We know who we are. You don't know who you are. So bye-bye, Department of Interior. That's what went down the last time. Robin Danner, Esther Kia Aina, all of those chicks. Yeah, where are they now? Well, they're living very well. They made a lot of money off of that action. And you'll recall if you were at the DOI meetings back then, I followed her around. My testimony was the same thing every single time. It was the definition of racketeering. Because this is what the DOI is telling us. Think about this, okay? They're coming to us and they're saying, you need protection. You need benefits and protection from us. So you give us your signature to protect yourself from us. And I might add, they have broken every single treaty on the Mokuhonu with the Anishinaabe. So don't even think about, federal recognition as being a viable option for our people. I had to get ready to listen to, I had to get ready to do this. And I don't know if you can tell I'm kind of stressed out about it because it is very traumatizing to go through this book. It's like doing this process was like a reliving of all of it. Everything I've been broadcasting for 20 years, all of the last 20 years of our shared experiences in fighting for our sovereignty and our freedom. This is not an easy thing that I'm doing, and that's why I really appreciate if you share this and subscribe to my channel. If you think it has some value, you can, share this with your family and buy the book. Do buy the book because you're going to need it. There's some big doo-doo coming up. All right, let's get to the story. Like I said, when you order this book, it comes with a beautiful little book, a bookmark of our queen. And it says on it, never cease to act because you fear you may fail. That's Lili Uokalani, and that's what she says on her bookmark there. And we've been going through this book, and I'm just going to briefly touch on certain things. Self-determination is determination of one's mind or will by itself toward an object. Number 2, the action of a people in deciding its own form of government, free determination of statehood, postulated as a right. And this is from the Oxford English Dictionary. We've talked about We've talked about the two competing narratives in Hawaii. One is Hawaiian, one is American. And there's a good chance that the one most people know bears little resemblance to the truth. Right now, I'm going through having friends and tikis. They want to put tikis on their bodies. They want to tattoo tikis on their bodies. And they're buying these tikis from like souvenir shops. And the tikis say the tiki of money and prosperity. And I'm just like, you guys don't know who this guy is, you know, and we didn't have money. So if you knew even a little bit about our narrative, the true narrative, you wouldn't be desecrating our religion by considering putting these cartoons of our gods on your body. And they still don't get it. They still want to do it. So I don't know. I try to explain it, and then the curse that comes with it. So if you're thinking about that, American, and you're going to go get a ki'i on your body, get ready for a wild ride. You know why? I got one on mine. I would be the guy to ask. And mine is actually a real one. I know her name. Okay? Anyway, let's get to the chapter. The Department of Hawaiian Homelands. In 1921, the U.S. Congress put about 200,000 acres of that crown and government land in a trust, offering 99-year leases to some Hawaiians for about $1 a year. If you can get past the part about leasing land back to the people it belongs to, $1 a year sounds great, right? The purpose of the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act, HHCA, was to address the growing number of post-overthrow impoverished Hawaiians living in urban squalor by getting them back onto the land. In doing so, hundreds of white men in Washington, D.C. took control of how Hawaiians are defined and ratified a 50% blood quantum rule for capital N. Remember I told you about the capital N is for 50% and over Native Hawaiians. It was a swift way for the American government to vanish Hawaiians and legitimize land theft, going on the assumption that we Hawaiians would eventually breed ourselves into what Congress views as extinction. The 50% rule tore at the genealogical tradition of how we identify ourselves, which should be taken literally as meaning that an American law was written to deliberately rip apart genealogies by dividing families. Race or racializing people is a haole invention. We Kanaka Maoli, Native Hawaiians, Indigenous Hawaiians, however we choose to refer to ourselves, are a genealogical people, not racial. In Hawaiian traditions, our families expand, they don't contract, regardless of who marries in. It is genetically and spiritually impossible for anyone born into our bloodlines to be diminished by their birth and made less entitled to their heritage, regardless of whether or not they are of mixed ancestry. Also, much of the land offered to Hawaiians via that legislation was intentionally remote, dry, and barely livable. Yeah, they want it today. You got to check out a YouTube link called Sensation About Occupation. Check that one out. It'll make you barf. The American system in Hawaii was and remains designed to make being Hawaiian and attempting to live as a Hawaiian a miserable experience. When the federal government transferred the already disappointing HHCA to the so-called state of Hawaii in 1959, it was renamed Department of Hawaiian Homelands, DHHL. Regarded by most Hawaiians as a serial failure, the DHH waitlist is long, with very little agricultural land made available. Since 1921, fewer than 10,000 leases have been awarded, and most of those are residential lots, not farmland. Tens of thousands of Hawaiians over the generations have signed up for the waitlist and have died without ever receiving a lease. But the DHHL has been a success for non-Hawaiian corporate leases. Everything from big box stores and supermarkets to cattle ranching is taking place on DHHL land. The ways in which the Crown and government lands prosper everyone, except Hawaiians, are not limited to commercial enterprises. Much of that nearly 2 million acres of unceded land is where the schools and parks and airports reside. And at least 60% of the land the U.S. military built its bases on is Crown and government land, which includes the largest live fire training area outside of the continental U.S. in Pohakuloa, located at the foot of Mauna Kea. I'm going to read that again. 60% of the land the U.S. military built its bases on is Crown and government land, which includes the largest live fire training area outside of the continental U.S. in Pohakuloa, located at the foot of Mauna Kea. And you know why she's going to blow? Because a few years ago, they were doing testing and bombing all day long for days on end. Every few minutes, bombing. I lived in Pauilo at the time, and you could feel the earth shaking. And that's why Mauna Loa is going to, take care of business for us. I really believe that, Hawaiians. We just send her that way. Mind focus, as Auntie Louise always says. That makes me so sick to know that our land that we're supposed to have is housing the arms of a belligerent. Under international law, if you're a free and sovereign neutral country, as we were recognized as by the UN back in the day, before the illegal overthrow, you're not supposed to house the arms of a belligerent country. And that's what the United States is, very much a belligerent country. Mauna Kea, another of Hawaii's covetous features, are her mountains. When measured from its base on the ocean floor, Mauna Kea is the tallest mountain in the world and of enormous spiritual and cultural significance to Hawaiians, which is probably why the Ali'i designated it as part of the Crown lands. But at 14,000 feet above sea level, it is as desirable to the American astronomers as Pearl Harbor is to the Navy. The first telescope on Mauna Kea was 2.2 meters and became operational in 1970. It was built by the University of Hawaii, UH, which is the state institution that controls the master lease of the summit. There are now 21 telescopes with additional support buildings, though most literature only counts the 13 larger scopes, choosing not to include the 8 smaller arrays. It's a trip up there if you've never been up there. It's like walking on the moon with all these alien-looking buildings, and some of them just deploy while you're walking around. The air is super thin, and you just know that all of these things are hideous. I used to go up there with Uncle Hank all the time and go to the highest ahu, which they tore down because that's where they want to put their telescope. And my heart just mourns that last time I was up there, you could see Hualalai, and you could see Haleakala and Ka'ala all the way to Kawaikini vai Ale Ale. It was such a clear day. And it was around this time of year on my birthday. And that was my first, after we came down, we went to my very first DHHL meeting for Mauna Kea, and I want to say that was in 2008, 2007, with Uncle Hank, and it was my birthday. And I was so blessed to know what was happening over here because I live on Kauai, and they weren't doing any meetings on our islands, on any of the other islands. So if you wanted to be part of what was happening on Mauna Kea, you had to come over here. Anyway, Maui's magnificent mountain Haleakala is also inundated with the astronomy industry, and half of those telescopes are owned and operated by the military. In 1996, the UH proposed a master plan for Mauna Kea, envisioning a similar industrialized and potentially militarized future to that of Haleakala. By 2000, the university's plan was to allow 65 more telescopes on the mountain. including the Next Generation Large Telescope and the project we refer to as the TMT, or the 30-meter telescope. The university's lease of the summit is set to expire in 2033, and all of the telescopes are required to be decommissioned at that time. But given recent legislative maneuvers to establish a second entity to share control of the summit with the university, it's clear that the state assumes it will control the mountain forever, because the fight for the TMT wears on, with costs projected to be $2.5 billion if construction were to begin today. First light would happen around 2032. And it's doubtful so much would go into a project scheduled to be mothballed soon after completion. Also at this time now, because this book was written a bit ago, the TMT is obsolete. You have the James Webb telescope cruising around, but they still want to do it. You know why? Because they've already spent the money. Controlling Mauna Kea is more about than the astronomy industry. Dominating the summit is synonymous with dominating the Hawaiian people. For us, Mauna Kea has nothing to do with industry or money. It is our most sacred site, a place of traditional religious worship with ancient ahu, which are altars, and burials. The spiritual nexus between us and the Creator, Mauna Kea, represents our creation story, our book of Genesis, so to speak. And it is the home of 3 revered goddesses. It is also where Hawaiians practice and study ancient ways of star knowledge, indigenous astronomy, and a necessary science for a people who were navigating the Pacific long before Jesus was born and Europeans figured out the earth was round. In response to the 2000 UH plan, a small group of cultural practitioners and activists, known as the Mauna Kea Hui, took up the protection of that mountain as their kuleana. Intent on stopping the perpetual destruction of the summit's cultural sites and endangered species habitats, ongoing threats to a major watershed, the Hui drew the line that marked the point of no return and launched dozens of successful legal challenges that blocked new telescope proposals. They also authored the Temple Report, a 30-plus page document outlining cultural and legal protections for the mountain. And since 2009, the Hui has focused its efforts on the 30-meter telescope, which, if built, would be the second largest in the world. At any given moment when it comes to Mauna Kea, there are dozens of cultural, political, and historical issues that come to bear. But behind every so-called legal or scientific transaction with regard to the Mauna and all Hawaiian Kingdom land is the drive for profit. So much money has changed hands on the mountain that possibly into the billions on construction and telescopes and research and patents and salaries and legal fees. It would take a team of forensic accountants to add it all up. Like every square foot of Hawaii, Mauna Kea is prized real estate. And how much does the astronomy industry pay? As it stands atop our most sacred site, cloaked with the almighty moniker of Western science, $1. $1 whole per year. Like the cost of the DHHL leases Hawaiians have been waiting a century for. The book is Our Rights to Self-Determination, a Hawaiian Manifesto by Ann Keala Kelly. You can get this book at kuleanaworks.com. And I'm asking you from the bottom of my heart to please share this video and share all the others if you haven't watched them. If you haven't already done so, give it a like and a subscribe. Pass it on. Put it on TikTok. Slice and dice it. Do what you gotta do, Kanaka. Because this is the time. This is the time to stand up for our rights to self-determination. Love you much. I'll see you next time with the next chapter, the principle of degradation. Aloha no.